The U.S. Department of Education has set a standard for the overall statewide graduation rate for students experiencing homelessness. The standard is 90% or above. In Tennessee, the 2018-19 graduation rate was 89.7%. The 2019-20 graduation rate was 89.6%. And the 2021 graduation rate for students were 88.7%. So as you can see, we had a decrease from 2019 to 20. Before the pandemic, Tennessee's high school graduation rate was on an upward trend since 2013. In 2019, the state set a record high of 89.7% of students earning a high school diploma within 4 years. Among the student groups that saw the drop was migrant, homeless, and immigrant populations. Meanwhile, the graduation rates for Asian students and Hispanic students improved. Though the percentage of English learners who earned a diploma on time also slightly grew, the population had the lowest graduation rate compared to other groups, was economically disadvantaged. And so we had 80.8% for your economically disadvantaged. Your English learners were 71%, and your homeless students were 72%. So let's dig into the definition of McKinney-Vento. Under the federal law, the definition of homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act is children and youth who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate. Those are three important words: fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, including children and youth who are sharing the housing of other persons due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or similar reason, living in motels, hotels, trailer parks, campgrounds due to lack of alternate adequate accommodations, living in emergency or transitional shelters or abandoned hospitals, living in a public or private place not designated or ordinarily used as a regular sleeping accommodation for human beings, living in cars, parks, public spaces, abandoned buildings, substandard housing, bus or train stations, or similar settings, and who are migratory children living in the above circumstances. Again, I'm going to want to reiterate the importance of when you're trying to determine if a student is McKinney-Vento eligible, you want to look at if the housing is fixed, regular, and adequate. Okay, let's look at the privacy. Schools must treat information about a homeless child or youth living situation as a student education record, which is protected by the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. Due to FERPA, LEAs must obtain prior written consent from the parent or eligible student to disclose any information about the student's educational record. So let's talk about the impacts of COVID-19 on your homeless programs. The state's SEA level homeless students population decreased by 22% in 2021, as 14,386 homeless students were identified in 2021 versus the 18,482 in 2019-20. Homeless residency remained highly concentrated in your doubled up category, 81%, followed by hotel motel at 11%, shelters at 5%, and unsheltered at 3%. I'm just going to give you just a quick minute to look at those numbers and really take those numbers in. So even more prevalent was 91% among your unaccompanied homeless youth, as you can see here on the slide. So we had a lot of unaccompanied homeless youth that were flagged as being homeless. But then you had a decrease of negative 17%, and then your students with disabilities, again, had a decrease, as well as your subgroups, lower rates for your homeless populations to 22%. Going to give you a minute to look over this data. Again, these slides will be available at the end of the webinar. So I also wanted to quickly share with you the Tennessee SEA level homeless enrolled by grade. And while I did not include a slide with a data breakdown for your young homeless McKinney-Vento From the pre-K ages 3 to 5 in 2020-21, 168 students were served. But if you look at your 2019-20 data, we had 247 students served. So that was a decrease of 32%. And we all know that early intervention and attending preschool program is crucial. So we really need to look at identifying your early childhood McKinney-Vento students. So we already know that pre-COVID, economically disadvantaged students were already behind from their peers or are floating under the radar. Post-COVID, it's gotten even harder. To share a quote from the National Education Association, they are becoming invisible. So again, a major academic loss to the economically disadvantaged students. The students were lost during the remote learning. They had issues with Wi-Fi connectivity from devices, no parent or adult to help them with a computer, or any kind of connectivity issues. Of course, again, we all know there's a lack of tech devices, or no devices at all. And possibly there's no place for them to charge your laptop or these tech devices that were made available for these students. Again, if they're homeless, they probably don't have access to any of these things that are needed. Again, they probably experienced frequent moves as well. So many students, especially in rural areas, reported that they had no internet options or access to them. We had 40 to 50% of households that did not have a tech device. Even more did not have enough of these devices for all the students in the home. Many homeless liaisons worked additional hours to deliver these tech devices to hotels, shelters, and campgrounds. Families were unable to travel to pick up these meals, tech resources. LEAs went above and beyond to provide these meals every week, and clothing, hygiene items, enrichment packets. There was a lack of hygiene items, a lack of masks, thermostats, thermometers, sanitizers. Again, all of these items, I'm sure at this point, are very aware of all the things that these students did not have. They had unsafe housing environments. Students dropped off the radar and stopped logging into virtual learning. This was and is a difficult time to identify students who are learning remotely. LEAs can and should provide training on spotting red flags, difficulty logging in at specific times. Also, families and students that are difficult to reach. You want assignments that are not being completed. You want to flag all of these for your teachers. Students that are reluctant to turn on their computers during virtual learning. A big thing is you want to train your staff and your teachers on the background signs to watch for. Look for if they're in a motel, shelter, campground backgrounds. Numerous non-family members come and go, so you want to look at that. And frequently observe changes in your locations. Again, it's important to train your staff on this. We think that they may know this, but training is a big piece. So let's dig a little deeper into the identification of students. The LEA should be looking beyond the basic evicted or lost home due to financial hardship. You want to be identifying based on a loss of housing due to a possible flood, maybe a possible fire. Maybe the family was displaced due to mold or domestic violence, thrown out by a family member, relatives, or friends. Maybe they're runaways. You might think, well, they chose to run away, but we don't know what the underlying reason was for your youth to run away. So you really want to think outside the box. And it's just not because they were evicted from their hotel or from their housing situation. We want to dig deeper and ask those questions. Looks like I'm off on my slides. I apologize for that. Let me get caught up. So again, could your reason for being homeless be that they live in substandard housing? Maybe they're unaccompanied youth. Again, we don't know the reasons why they left home. Maybe they felt unsafe. Maybe they were being abused. There are a number of situations, and they also, again, may be doubled up. When you're trying to identify a student will qualify for McKinney-Vento services, you also, again, I'm going to go back to the legal definition. Is the housing fixed, not subject to change, permanent, or stationary? Is it regular, which is consistent, routine, predictable, normal, standard? And last, adequate. Is it sufficient to meet the physical and psychological needs? Again, a lot of people wonder, is this student going to be McKinney-Vento eligible? You got to look back to that definition: fixed, regular, and adequate. Think about that when you're trying to determine. For your reference, I have provided a brief document for you to reference on the common signs of homelessness. This document can also be found in the National Center for Homeless Education, NCHE, or by clicking on the link provided on the slide. Again, this is a great document to have around your common areas for teachers and staffing to kind of get some ideas as to what to look for your common signs. Because many of you on the call today are familiar with the American Rescue Plan, ARP 1 and 2, I just wanted to give you a quick overview. Under the American Rescue Plan, ARP, a total of $8 million has been dispersed by the U.S. Department of Education to address the needs of homeless children and youth, highlighted by the impact of COVID-19 and the recent pandemic. Based on the guidance and recommendations of ARP Homeless, was allocated to LEAs through two separate awards, ARP Homeless 1.0 and ARP Homeless 2.0. If you have not had a chance to read the full overview, you can find that in ePlan, TDOE Resources, ARP Homeless. So similar to the federal law for the McKinney-Vento sub-grant funding should be used to identify homeless children and youth. Many homeless students were lost during the pandemic due to the number of reasons, as I've already mentioned, and using ARP Homeless 2 funds could help expand in ways for identification that may not otherwise be attainable. You can provide the much needed wraparound services and provide assistance needed for homeless children and youth to attend and participate fully in school activities, including in-person instruction and re-engagement and success strategies to return to school in the fall and, of course, throughout 2024. So as I mentioned earlier, the data shows that many homeless students were lost due to closure of schools during the pandemic. These funds are crucial now to aid in increased identification of these students. We all know that when children who are homeless are not identified, they do not receive the support that they need to attend and succeed in school. So under the McKinney-Vento Act, we provide these much needed services to these students in your LEA. Now that I've talked about the importance and the need to identify homeless students, let's look at some identification strategies. Your LEA data plays a major factor in this process. Data should be used to identify areas of need. Counties underreporting unaccompanied youth, pre-K population underreported. As I mentioned earlier, it's so drastically underreported, especially in your pre-K, and your urban schools reported lower numbers during the pandemic. So look at your ARP funding to add outreach specialist for someone who has a background in mental health, art therapy, domestic violence, trauma-informed services. You want them to be able to do your outreach to your LEAs, to your mental health providers, to domestic violence shelters, to your LGBTQ groups, to your unaccompanied youth, for maybe host home providers. Reach out to your colleges, reach out to your hotels, your motels, any of those shelters. If possible, you want to add a second outreach specialist with a background in school counseling that has experience as a non-public school and connections with the family, with faith-based community. You want to outreach to churches, service providers, food pantries, non-domestic violence shelters, pre-K providers, service groups, and your private colleges. Again, pre-K providers is something that we really want to push and look at, is providing that Head Start program to those families of those children that maybe aren't kindergarten through 12 at this point. If you're a homeless liaison and a rural LEA, in-person outreach is super important. This is how you're going to make your program known, and how you can get the needed help for identifying students. The more people that are familiar with identifying and understanding what services are available, the more outreach, the more identification you'll be able to provide to these students. So when your LEAs are applying for the ARP homeless funding, one of the most asked questions was, how can I market to help these homeless students, help identify them? So you want to look at, where are your families sleeping? Where is the main base that they are staying most of their time? You want to saturate these communities with information about your non-traditional definitions of homeless, like who is homeless. You want to really just saturate the community with this documentation, the words, passing it along with maybe your new hired outreach specialist. You want to look at your unaccompanied homeless youth. You want to look at your substandard housing areas, your doubled up areas, your LGBTQ populations at risk. You can do this with posters, flyers, social media, radio ads, newspaper ads, TV ads. So think outside that box to really reach as many families and students as you can. So where do you put the information? You want to put them in bathroom stalls. You want to put them on community boards, food pantries, laundromats, church bulletins, your Med Express, because a lot of people get their medicines. You want to do your Walmarts, your grocery stores, your pediatricians, hospitals, your motels, your hotels, your campgrounds. You really want to look into your community and see and think about where the best places for this information to be seen. Again, you typically do put them in your Walmarts and your laundromats, but really think outside that box and dig in there and see where you can reach the most families, the most amount of children, unaccompanied homeless youth. In order to be able to identify as many possible homeless students for services, the homeless liaison should include the McKinney-Vento definition in your district level training, which is required. You also want to provide that definition of homeless. You want to make sure that staff know the rights and services provided to these students. You want to make sure that all staff in the LEA know what the role of the local homeless liaison is and who that person is. It's extremely important that they know that you're there and you're there to provide that support to them as well as the students that they are identifying. You want to participate in community coalitions and organizations that provide services to families experiencing poverty and homelessness. You want to provide awareness activities and presentations to civic clubs and church clubs. And you want to get to know the homeless service providers in your community. It's extremely important that you work with the district personnel to ensure that LEA policies and procedures comply with the McKinney-Vento Act. The front office staff, enrollment staff should know how to adhere to the enrollment policy and know who to contact when a homeless student has been identified. You want to make sure that the proper staff in the LEA know about the attendance policy, transportation procedure, immunization policy, participation in athletics and other extracurricular activities. The more people in the LEA that know about the identification of homeless students, the more you will be able to provide those much needed services. I hear from many homeless liaisons that they wear multiple hats. So maybe you can consider assigning a point of contact at each school to assist in enrolling and identifying McKinney-Vento students. You're wearing multiple hats. It's hard to be in all those places at one time. So if you have a set person that can provide that support when a student is identified, that would be extremely helpful for identifying and helping those students. So you want to look at targeted outreach materials. You want to do a housing questionnaire. You want to do posters, brochures, and other informational materials. In addition to the federally required homeless rights posters, you can also create your own poster that may target your unaccompanied homeless youth. Again, there are a variety of brochures that the National Center for Homeless Education has, which you can also provide to your families as well as throughout the community. You want to put your information about your McKinney-Vento services and contact information in your student handbooks. It's very important that if your unaccompanied homeless youth is going through their student handbook or looking for that help and that service, that your information is there for them. Again, in the age of technology, adding information to your LEA school website is a great way for students and families to see what services are available to them. A best practice and a great way to identify students who may be homeless is to use a homeless questionnaire, which I just mentioned. Every student gets one every year, no questions asked. Every year you have to do an enrollment form. Under McKinney-Vento, you are required to verify McKinney-Vento status at the start of every school year. So including this in your LEA enrollment packet or online enrollment process is a very great best practice. You want to designate someone at each school to take these documents and look at them or look at them online. So you have someone who's actually looking over the documentation. You want to forward all of the information to the district homeless liaison or have that designated point of contact to get that information. And again, you want to have all this translated in all the languages that are frequently used in your LEA. So samples can be found of the housing questionnaire and e-plan, TDOE resources, ESSA information guidance, PowerPoints, and webinars under Title IX Part A, Education for Homeless Children and Youth. And then you go to the McKinney-Vento Toolkit and resources. While the templates, while these are templates, the department does not require that you use these particular documents, but you're strongly encouraged to use a housing questionnaire. And then these templates will have step-by-step information on how to fill in the document and use it for your LEA. So I just provided a quick little snapshot of what the templates look like in ePlan. This is your housing form. Again, you see the red where it tells you exactly what to put in. And then there is no access. You don't have to have login information to access TDOE resources. And then here is a sample of your housing questionnaire. Again, as you can see throughout, there are little red, it's in red lettering, the things that you can adjust to fit to your LEA. And again, all those templates can be found in ePlan. And then if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you with that as well. So let's look at the posters. The posters that you have should explain the rights of homeless children and youth and should be displayed in all schools and locations where parents and students are enrolled. They should be in hotels, motels, campgrounds, and shelters. In or around public libraries, laundromat, shelters, convenience stores, bus stations, and all locations around the community where persons experiencing homelessness access these services. So you need to ensure every school has updated homeless posters posted in the common area. Under the federal law, McKinney-Vento Act requires that LEAs have updated contact information for both the LEA level homeless liaison as well as the state coordinator. At the start of each school year, a best practice is to make sure all posters in the LEA are up to date. For all levels of monitoring by the department, the LEA is required to provide evidence of homeless rights posters. And if the contact information is missing from those posters, it could result in a finding. So it's very, very important that you keep this up to date and you make it a time on your calendar to go out to all your schools or to that contact person to make sure that you have your homeless liaison contact name and information on there. And then again, on this slide, I provided my information for you to be able to make sure your posters are up to date. Posters and other virtual resources can be ordered free from the National Center for Homeless Education. And if you have not been there, I strongly recommend that you take a look at what they have for you to use. Again, these are the brochures that you can find at the National Center for Homeless Education. They're available in Spanish and English. They have some really great resources that you can find that will help with your McKinney-Vento program. So as I mentioned earlier about your LEA school handbook and websites, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that. You want to include that information about the McKinney-Vento Act in your district handbook that's given to every student. So you want to clearly display this information about McKinney-Vento on your LEA school web page. And you want to make sure that you have your LEA's homeless liaison contact information, your school level contact information if you have a contact person specifically in a school. You want to tell a little bit about the McKinney-Vento Act. You want to include that definition. You want to provide the local homeless family resources that may be available and the support that the LEA offers to students in transition. Again, you want to maybe put something about McKinney-Vento Act, the National Center for Homeless Education, and the right to dispute as well in your handbook or on your website. I think that the more you put this information in there, the more students, unaccompanied homeless youth and families will see that this is available and you can identify your students. So again, I wanted to just go over quick reminders. You do want to be aware of the many reasons for homelessness. You want to collaborate with parents and families. Be mindful of your words, your tone, your actions, and be respectful. Provide appropriate support and advocacy. Collaborate with other departments and agencies. And you want to just really be sure that you're putting the word out there, that you're identifying those McKinney-Vento students and that you're providing those much needed resources. So we have a slide that has all the resources that I talked about today. Your e-plan, your U.S. Department of Education, Schoolhouse Connections, another great resource for your homeless programs. The National Center for Homeless Education, Children and Youth, NACE. And then you got NCHE, National Center for Homeless Education. And again, e-plan, I can't stress enough that e-plan, TDOE resources, has a great amount of McKinney-Vento tools for you to use, and no login is necessary to get to that information. So I wanted to do a quick little plug about the new McKinney-Vento grant cycle starting. It will be for FY23, FY24, and FY25. As I've mentioned before, winners will be announced in June of 2022. And the purpose of the McKinney-Vento subgrant is to facilitate the enrollment, the attendance, and the success in school for homeless children and youth. So your subgrant guidelines, you want to provide services that cannot replace regular academic programming. The services must be designed to expand upon or improve your school's regular academic programs. These funds will be additional funding to be used to support your homeless programs. In the upcoming weeks, the department will release information about the updated McKinney-Vento subgrant technical guide, as well as a schedule of office hours and webinars to come. I hope that you will talk with your director of schools and your homeless team to see if this is something that you would like to apply for. I think it'd be great for your homeless programs to have additional funding on top of your ARP funding. So with that, I have some time for some questions. Please feel free to unmute your line or drop anything that you have in the chat box. I know I covered a lot of information quickly. Again, the slide deck, as well as the recorded webinar, will be available in the coming week. But if you have any questions for me today, please unmute your line or drop something in the chat box. The question is there any idea on how much the subgrant will be? We have not heard from Ed what Tennessee will be getting. We usually do have a range depending on the number of students in each LEA on how much the LEA could possibly receive. And that information will come along as well in the next coming weeks about what we're looking at as far as funding. That's a great question. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, I can share my contact information. Bryn, do you mind dropping that in the chat box for me? And that will be on the slide deck as well. Any other questions? If you do have any questions about the McKinney-Vento subgrant, please don't hesitate to give me a call or shoot me an email. I'll be glad to set up time to talk to you about that. If that's something that you're considering. We have streamlined the applications to kind of make it a little bit less time consuming. So I am looking forward to really opening that up to your homeless liaisons and supporting those programs. And I hope that this identification will also help you see ways that you can use your ARP funding as well as that McKinney-Vento subgrant. Any other questions before we move on? Bryn has dropped contact information in the chat box. Thank you, Bryn. Please, if you'll take just a few minutes to let us know how we're doing here at the department, you can click on the screen or you can follow the link address. It only takes just a few minutes. I'll give you about one more minute.